Namaste dear learners. I welcome you all to our series of video lessons. Today we will discuss a lesson called Zero Budget Natural Farming. I am Basavaraj Bidigi, Assistant Professor of English, GFGC Yergatti. In introductory note of zero budget natural farming, we will also discuss why zero budget natural farming is important, and at the outset I would like to discuss the crisis of Indian agricultural sector. uh, it is important to note that the crisis in Indian agriculture, on the one hand, is about our disconnect with the farmer and their plight, and about the absence of empathy, and on the other hand, is also about the disconnect of policies from the farm and about the withdrawal, if not the absence, of the state. Uh, the people who are dependent on agriculture, the farmer, the agricultural laborer, and their household members, among others, are in dire conditions today. This is about the livelihood of those dependent on agriculture and is also about the dignity of their profession. Equally important concerns are uh, whether the Indian farmer likes farming, or, as discussed by Gaurav and Mishra, on the fact that smallholders' returns are efficient, but their low absolute returns raise questions on the sustainability of their livelihood, and the concerns which are haunting Indian agriculture are as below. When we compare the share of agriculture and the allied activities in gross domestic product and in employment, shows that the farmer has declined relatively faster till 2009 and 10. uh, Actually, the average monthly income of Indian farmer and consumption and net saving of farmer households for 2002 and 3 and 2012-13 are given in a very low table. The average income of the Indian farmers is very low. The National Family Health Survey indicates that from among under 5 children, 38% are stunted, 21% are wasted. The annual average growth rate of the index of agricultural production for food grains, non-food grains, and all crops for different sub-periods between 1981 and 2016 is convey the low productivity of the agricultural sector. Uh, the growth rates for agricultural gross domestic product has always been lower than that of the overall gross domestic product of India in recent times. There is a wide gap, income gap between agricultural and non-agricultural sector. Agricultural credit as designed in India is needed by the farmer to do the same thing again and again. Take loan, produce, sell and repay, and then the cycle gets repeated every year. This limits the scope for either a horizontal or vertical growth. This in essence explains why under some duress agricultural credit becomes non-serviceable and the default, if any, is not willful. There is an increased risk and vulnerability in Indian farming sector. Uh, the con- the consecutive droughts, the widening gaps between the agricultural and non-agricultural sector, uh, and inadequate and non-serviceable are not the only reasons to explain the increasing vulnerability of the agricultural sector. The multitude of technological and financial interventions envisioned to reduce risk can actually end up increasing it. Uh, Zero budget natural farming is a form of low external input sustainable agriculture, rather an extreme form that does not say shy away from suggesting that there is no need to use any external inputs. All inputs are to be locally resourced from in and around the village or perhaps within the farm in a symbiotic way. This is a dynamic system wherein outputs are likely to be inputs at least one of the other outputs. More importantly, as none of the inputs are sourced from outside the system, then there is no cost, and it is that is referred to as zero budget natural farming. uh, it is a peasant movement, and it for the first time it evolved in Karnataka. The people who engage in ZBNF are voluntarily inspired, and they are farmer members. The neo-liberalization of Indian economy caused for the decline of uh, uh, profit in Indian agricultural sector. That is the reason why a zero budget natural farming has become so much relevant today at present time. Zero budget natural farming is a method of chemical free agriculture drawing from traditional Indian practices. ZBNF goes back to the traditional form of agriculture in India. It was originally promoted by Maharashtrian agriculturist and Padma Shri recipient Subhas Palekar. It was Subhas Palekar who promulgated, who propounded the ZBNF movement. Subhas Palekar developed ZBNF in the mid 1990s as an alternative to the Green Revolution's methods driven by chemical fertilizers and pesticides and intensive irrigation. Subhas Palekar uh, propounds this movement in against to the Green Revolution of Punjab. Subhas Palekar argues that the rising cost of the fertilizers and external inputs was a leading cause of indebtedness and suicide among farmers, while the impact of chemicals on the environment and on long-term fertility was devastating. Subhas Palekar says that the exorbitant rates of fertilizers is also a cause for the suicide of the farmers and as well their indebtedness. And he also says that the use of extreme fertilizers causes environmental downfall, and there is every chance of the farm losing its fertility without the need to spend money on these inputs or take loans to buy them. The cost of production could be reduced and farming made into a zero budget. Subhas Palekar says that if we stop using fertilizers, we need not to invest any money for farming. That's what he says. Breaking, he says, this ZBNF movement can break the debt cycle for many small farmers in India. Uh, he says instead of commercially produced chemical inputs, the ZBNF promotes the application of Jivamruta. ZBNF doesn't promote the farmers to use fertilizers, but instead they use a chemical called Jivamrita, which is a mixture of fresh desi cow dung and aged desi cow urine, jaggery, pulse, flour, water, and soil on farmland. Jivam, Jivamrita is made out of mixture of desi cow dung and cow urine, jaggery, pulse, flour, water, and soil. This is a fermented microbial culture that adds nutrients to the soil and acts as a catalytic agent to promote the activity of microorganisms and earthworms in the soil. This kind of Jivamrita increases the earthworms in the soil, and uh, it also increases the fertility of the soil. About 200 liters of Jivamrita should be sprayed twice a month per acre. He says uh, 200 liter of uh, Jivamrita should be spread over 2 acres twice a month. After 3 years, the system is supposed to become self-sustaining, and if we go on doing like this, after some 3 years, we need not to use anything. We need not to use fertilizers or other chemicals to grow our crops. Only one cow is needed for 30 acres of land. Uh, Subhas Palekar says that one cow is more than enough to maintain 30 acres of land, according to Mr. Palekar, with the caveat that it must be a local Indian breed, not an imported Jersey or Holstein. According to Palekar, we need to have a local cow and we need to use the dung of local cow. A similar mixture called Bijamrita is used to we application of Jivamrita. Apply Jivamrita to the crops twice a month. Mix it with irrigation water or as a 10% foliar spray. Next one about which he talks is Bijamrita. Bijamrita is used to treat seeds, while concoctions using neem leaves and pulp, tobacco, and green chilies are prepared for insect and pest management. Instead of using chemicals to avoid pests, we need to prepare Bijamrita. The ZBNF method also promotes soil aeration, minimal watering, intercropping, bunds, and topsoil mulching, and discourages intensive irrigation and deep ploughing. Mr. Falekar is against vermicomposting, which is the mainstay of typical organic farming, as it introduces the most common composting worm, the European red wiggler, to Indian soils. He claims these worms absorb toxic metals and poison groundwater and soil. Uh, Now we will discuss why the ZBNF matters. According to National Sample Survey Office data, almost 70% of agricultural households spend more than half of all farmers in a debt. In states such as Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, levels of indebtedness are around 90%. According to the survey of NSSO, 90% farmers of Indian states are in debt because of the exorbitant rates of fertilizers and the palms and the low rate of palm produces. In Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, each household bears an average debt of 1 lakh. The average, every household, farmer household of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana averages debt of 1 lakh. In order to achieve the central government's promise to double farmers' income by 2022, one aspect being considered is natural farming methods such as the ZBNF. It reduces farmers' dependence on loans to purchase inputs they cannot afford. Meanwhile, intercropping allows for increased returns. ಸುಭಾಷ್ ಪಾಲೇಕರ್ ಟಾಕ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿ ಕ್ರಾಪಿಂಗ್ ಅಂದರೆ ವಿವಿಧ ಬೆಳೆಗಳನ್ನು ಒಂದೇ ಹೊಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೆಯುವಂತಹ ವಿಚಾರದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೂಡ ಅವರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. A limited 2017 study in Andhra Pradesh claimed a sharp decline in input costs and improvement in yields after the implementation of ZBNF in Andhra Pradesh. Many farmers reported that they had spent less than what they used to spend in earlier years to get high profit. Mr. Palekar's native Maharashtra have reverted to conventional farming after seeing their ZBNF returns dropped after a few years, in turn raising doubts about the method's efficacy in increasing farmers' incomes. There are also another thing is mulching. There are 3 types of mulching in ZBNF. Soil mulch. Soil mulch is nothing but mixing the soil with Jivamrita. This protects topsoil during cultivation and it does not destroy by tilling the land, the soil. Next one is straw mulch. Straw means ಉಳಿದಂತಹ ಹುಲ್ಲು. We are supposed to use the waste of the agriculture to compose, and this composed straw mulch increases soil fertility. ಮಣ್ಣಿನ ಫಲವತ್ತತೆಯನ್ನು ಇದು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. Mostly dry waste is decomposed and used in the farm. Live mulch. Next one is live mulch. It is nothing but intercrops and mixed crops. It is essential to develop multiple cropping patterns in India. Again, there are 2 kinds of multi-cropping. Seedling have 1 seed leaf. Seedlings have 2 seed crops. Fourth one is Vapsa or moisture. Palekar proves that roots of the crops need not much water if we practice ZBNF. According to Palekar, roots need water vapor. According to Subhash Palekar, the roots of the crops need only vapor of the water but not the actual water. And he says ZBNF reduces the need of heavy irrigations. According to ZBNF members, we need to irrigate only in the noon. According to ZBNF members, the crops are supposed to be irrigated only in the afternoon. Also, ZBNF, the farmers who are practicing ZBNF method report that there is a decline in the need of irrigation. The other principles of ZBNF are intercropping. For this reason, ZBNF gets zero budget name, because the farmer is growing multiple crops at the same time. The farmers need not to take debt, because they will compensate the budget by giving money from this multi-cropping method. Multi-cropping or intercropping does not mean that farmer need not spend money. The cost can be compensated by the income from intercrops. The intercrops are used to reduce the cost of the farming. Contours and bunds. Uh, when it is rainy season, we are supposed to build contours and bunds around our agricultural land, so that we can save rainwater. It is nothing but rainwater harvesting. Local species of earthworms. ZBNF farmers don't use vermicompost, as I said you, because they use local species of earthworms to decompose the waste of the farming. Revival of deep soil earthworms is recommended. Next one is cow dung. We need to use cow dung from local cow because it is very good, and it can reduce the cost of the farming. Dung of local cow has highest concentration of microorganisms as compared to European cow breeds. They say that the local cow dung is very important, he says. Zero budget natural farming is a chemical pre-agriculture drawing from traditional Indian practices. Uh, ZBNF advocates the need of an Indian breed cow whose numbers are declining at fast pace. To Before conclusion, I would like to discuss what is the way forward for ZBNF farmers. There is a host of structural marketing issues which needs to be addressed first before aiming to achieve the ambitious goal of ZBNF. We need to take some policy reforms as well as APMC reforms before we implement ZBNF completely. We need to strengthen agricultural market infrastructure, extending the procurement mechanism to all food grain and non-food grain crops to all states. There is a need of implementation of price deficiency payment system for selected crops, fixing MSP in consonance with the cost of cultivation. There is a need of abolishment of minimum export price for agricultural commodities. MNREGAs must also be linked with farm work in order to reduce the cost of cultivation, which has escalated at a faster pace over the past few years. We all know the MNREGA uh, policy, which should be linked with ZBNF so that the farm costing can be reduced. To conclude, ZBNF not only works in agronomic terms but also brings about a variety of social and economic benefits. ZBNF brings about economic benefits to the farmers, small landholders of India. Many farmers in India have seen increase in farm yields, soil conservation, seed diversity, quality of produce, household food autonomy, income and health. ZBNF not only brings out the farmer from the shackles of debt, but also it increases farm yields, and soil is conserved as well. We see a diversity of seeds, and the farm produce is of high quality. And we have seen when the farmers inculcate ZBNF method, they become autonomy in food, and also it helps the farmer to increase their income and their health. ZBNF helped farmers to reduce farm expenses. By using ZBNF method, many farmers have reduced the expenses of the farm, and it also reduced the need of loans and credits, uh, which is the major hunting problem of Indian farmers. And these are the messages from farmer to farmers. Uh, a ZBNF farmer from Bijapur says, I had 5 6 loans during my chemical farming days. A loan for my daughter's marriage, others for seedlings, stems, and fertilizers. Now my farm expenses are so low, and everything I get is an income for the family. I owe nothing to anyone. Thank you very much. We will continue in our next class.